Alright guys, at first glance, Mandate Order almost feels like a Chinese take on Manor Lords, the same slow, grounded approach to settlement building, the same focus on organic growth and local management, just transplanted into an imperial Chinese setting rather than medieval Europe. It's a game that clearly wears its influences on its sleeve, but instead of copying outright, it reinterprets those ideas through bureaucracy, balance, and stability rather than frontier expansion and feudal ambition. So in this video, I want to take a closer look at what Mandate Order is, how it plays, and how it compares especially to Manor Lords, and where it currently stands as an early access city builder. So diving straight in, Mandate Order is a strategy and settlement building game set during China's Warring States period, an era defined by fragmentation, constant conflict, and competing visions for governance. You begin on barren land and gradually build a fortified settlement that blends production, defense, and military infrastructure into a single cohesive system. The historical setting gives the game a naturally tense backdrop. Survival and growth aren't just economic goals, but necessities in a world where instability and external threats are always looming. And instead of telling a linear story, Mandate Order creates its narrative through its systems. You manage resources, population morale, territorial expansion while responding to disasters, invasions, and political pressure. Systems like worship and reform reinforce this broader theme, with sacrifices to heaven and earth influencing fortune and calamity, and technological or institutional reforms shaping how your settlement evolves over time. And the result is gameplay less concerned with scripted storytelling and more focused on the rise of a state through pragmatic decisions, moral trade-offs, and long-term planning and chaos. Looking deeper into the mechanics of the game, Mandate Order's economy is built around a clear and readable set of resources that feed directly into production and military systems. Core materials include wood, stone, tin, copper, jade, meat, and berries, with tin and copper being smelted, of course, into bronze, and iron unlocked later for more advanced equipment. Food production is straightforward but effective, with meat and berries feeding into kitchen buildings that sustain your population, and jade plays a more specialized role, functioning both as a local commodity and a valuable trading resource, while bronze, iron, and leather and pelts are essential for crafting weapons, armor, and gearing your military. Compared to Manorlords' deeper and more interconnected economy, Mandate Order systems are simpler but also easier to read and manage, especially as your settlement grows. Now, over on the building side of things, we follow a familiar but well-implemented production chain system here. Residential structures range from basic tents to supporting infrastructure like kitchens or even latrines, which is quite funny, which adds a surprisingly grounded touch to settlement life as well. Trade buildings allow you to move resources between deposits, settlements, and captured villages, which is quite cool, while dedicated logistics structures streamline distribution, an area where Mandate Order arguably feels more complete than Manor Lords in its current form. Defensive and military construction includes walls, fortifications, armories, weapon workshops, blacksmiths, and more exotic options like fixed ballistae or trebuchet. However, unlike Manor Lords' evolving housing plots and vertical building tiers, Mandate Order's progression is largely linear and very fixed, with new buildings unlocked through access to resources rather than multi-tiered upgrades, which does limit long-term settlement evolution. I also found that warfare is present from early on and feels more integrated than in many other early access city builders. Unit types are relatively traditional and simple here, so archers, swordsmen, and spearmen, but their effectiveness and complexity comes in when you start looking into equipment you produce with bronze or iron and other gear, offering meaningful upgrades over time. Siege mechanics are a notable strength here as well, with fortifications and siege engines playing a central role in warfare. Combat mechanics is still a bit underdeveloped and lacks depth in some places, but it already feels more functional and complete than Manor Lords' current battle systems. Beyond just organized warfare though between people, the world also poses threats. Wild animals like boars, bears, and wolves must be dealt with, alongside hostile forces and of course enemy settlements. And finally, there's one other layer of strategy I want to talk about here that Manor Lords currently doesn't offer, and that's village nodes that are scattered across the map, which can be captured to expand influence and provide tangible bonuses. These can range from increased trade value to population happiness boosts or combat modifiers for specific units and other modifiers as well. There's currently no traditional technology tree, and that may come later in the future of course, but progression at the moment instead comes from unlocking new resources, buildings, and equipment types. That said, Mandate Order does include a structured narrative and tutorial system that guides players through its mechanics in a way that feels clear and surprisingly engaging. As an early access title, not all the systems, like I said, are fully realized yet or present, and deeper technological or institutional progression may arrive in future updates. Now, of course, when it comes to comparing Mandate Order to Manor Lords directly, the differences become fairly clear once you spend some time with both games. Mandate Order feels more contained and structured, specifically in its economy and building systems. Progression is largely linear, with fewer branching choices and less long-term evolution in how settlements develop, and there's no equivalent to Manorlords' deeper building trees or organically evolving house plots, which means the economic side of Mandate Order can feel more limited once you've unlocked most of what the game currently offers. That said, Mandate Order does compensate this with a sense of clarity and completeness that, at the moment, Manor Lords sometimes lacks in its early access state. Systems are easier to understand, logistics are more straightforward, and there's less friction in simply getting a settlement up and running, and combat, while still underdeveloped in places, feels more immediate and usable, with systems like siege mechanics, fortifications, equipment progression. In contrast, Manor Lords combat often feels like a promising foundation rather than a fully realized system. There's also, of course, something to be said for how relaxing Mandate Order can be. The pace is slower, the management demands are lighter, and the game rarely overwhelms the player with complexity. That makes it easy to enjoy as a more laid-back city builder, even if it lacks some of that emergent depth that makes Manor Lords so compelling. Of course, being an early access title, Mandate Order still has its share of issues, bugs, balance problems, and performance hiccups become more noticeable as settlements grow, but the core experience is already solid. If future updates expand the economy, deepen progression, and polish existing systems, Mandate Order has the potential to grow into a strong and distinctive alternative within this emerging niche of grounded historical city builders. So essentially, Mandate Order may not yet reach the same level of depth or ambition as Manor Lords, but it also isn't trying to be a direct replacement either. Instead, it offers a more structured, accessible take on the genre, one that leans into administration, logistics, and steady progression rather than sprawling complexity. As an early access title, it still has plenty of room to grow, like I said, but the foundation is already really solid, and the game is genuinely enjoyable in its current form. And personally speaking, of course, what makes Mandate Order interesting is how it approaches familiar systems from a different cultural and mechanical perspective. The Warring States setting, the focus on legitimacy and stability, and the emphasis on siege warfare and logistics give it a distinct identity, even when the limitations of its economy and building systems become apparent. If future updates expand progression, deepen technology, refine combat, this could easily become a standout alternative for players looking for a calmer, more guided city building experience. Either way though, I would love to hear what you think about Mandate Order so far and how you feel it compares to Manor Lords as well. Which systems do you think need the most attention moving forward? The economy, progression, combat, or something else entirely? If there's a specific aspect of the game you'd like me to explore more in depth in a future video, then let me know. I would be happy to cover it. Also, my goal this year is to reach 100,000 subscribers, so if you enjoyed this video and found it informative, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more strategy and city builder content just like this. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.